Hey, it's another week, another recipe, and we are trying out a wartime rhubarb crumble, which can only be described as, well, rhubarb. Come hang out with me and bake, and let's see how this goes. Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Courtney Morris, and here we experiment with old recipes that history has forgotten and hope that they turn out well, because some of them sure don't. Anyways, thanks for joining me. If you're new here, I really appreciate you coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're coming back for more, my utmost thanks. All right, let's dive in. Okay, I promise you one of these days I'm gonna get out of this recipe book. This is not my only recipe book, but it's my favorite, and I keep finding things as I look through it that I want to do. So soon, I'm gonna just put this aside and go to my other cookbooks and find some new ones. But today, we are back in the Victory Cookbook by Marguerite Patton, a compilation of World War II recipes when Great Britain was on severe rationing. And today we're doing a rhubarb crumble, which I'm kind of excited about. So every year we plant a humongous garden, and I have a ton of rhubarb left over in my freezer that I preserved last summer. I need to use that before this year's harvest happens. So when I was looking through this for last week's recipe, I came upon rhubarb crumble, and I'm like, hey, I've got that. Let's try it. So I'm kind of thinking that this is going to be your pretty standard fruit crumble, just with rhubarb, and kind of like more of like a poor man's crumble because of the amounts of nothing that is in it. So we shall see. Okay, so I thawed out one of my bags of rhubarb. The rest of them, I decided since strawberry season is upon us, I need to re-up my strawberry jam supply. So whatever I don't use here is going in there. And I actually like rhubarb when it's very sweet. So needless to say, strawberry rhubarb pie is awesome. Rhubarb custard pie, not so awesome because it's not that sweet, and that's just my thing. So we need 1 pound of rhubarb, and I already cut and washed it and processed it. So 1 pound. Okay, that was about half the bag. Not bad. 1 pound of rhubarb. Okay, and then it says simmer with the syrup, which is golden syrup, 2 tablespoons. And I can only get golden syrup here in one place, and they didn't have it this time, so I'm using Caro syrup, which is about the American equivalent of such things, or as we like to call it here in the States, corn syrup. Nasty stuff, but you know, that's what they had. And that's what the recipe is telling me to do, and I am at the mercy of the recipe. Health to the wind. We're just gonna go for it. Actually, during wartime, since sugar was rationed enough, a lot of people ended up using the golden syrup as kind of a replacement for a lot of sweetener. And if you didn't have any of that, they had these things called like saccharin tablets, which I know saccharin means sugar of sorts, but I'm not entirely sure what that means. So if any of you out there remember that, or what they are, or what they tasted like, just kind of tell me in the comments your memories on that. Okay, so this says simmer with the syrup until cooked and placed at the bottom of a fireproof dish. I gotta remember this is the 1940s. All right, I'm just gonna use an 8x8 pan. I'm pretty sure it's fireproof, and if this catches fire, then we've got some bigger problems. So we're just gonna roll with that. Off to the stove. Okay, so I've got the golden syrup and the rhubarb in a pot, and it's said to simmer it until it's cooked, which I guess most of the cooking is going to be done here, considering the instructions said that the final cooking is 15-20 minutes, which I think is only just for the topping, because that's not enough time to get this stuff to cook down. So we will let that, I guess, simmer, and let's go back and make the topping. Alright, so I am not sure how long that's going to take to simmer. I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on it. I've got it on medium heat on the gas range, so we'll just... I know there's a lot of liquid in it, so I'm not really worried about it burning too much, but I do want to keep an eye on it just because it does have the Caro in it, and I don't want it to caramelize like immediately, so I'm going to go back and forth. So now we need to make the crumble top, and I love a good crumble, but I like a lot of crumble. That's almost my favorite part, with the brown sugar and just like big chunks. But we're not gonna get that today because we are rationed in the 40s, and we're only gonna be able to use about 4 ounces of flour for this. So I suppose back then, if you could get any of it, you'd be a happy person. Okay, so I need to rub the fat into the flour, salt and sugar until like fine breadcrumbs, and then sprinkle over the stewed fruit. Oh, how interesting. Okay, so this is more like breadcrumbs. This isn't making a batter like I didn't interpret that right when I first read it. Because normally on like an apple crumble, you would have, you know, a batter you just plop on the top and it cooks. But this is just almost like what you'd put over top of a traditional mac and cheese, like just a breadcrumb coating. Okay, 4 ounces of flour. And now rub 1.5 ounces of fat into the flour. Now normally I would use lard because it's available, it's cheap, it is, you know, applicable to the times. You could also use any sort of vegetable oil or drippings. It just says fat. Back then you just use what you had. I am going to take my coveted rationed butter though for this because I want it to be good. Okay, so that's roughly about 3 tablespoons of butter, maybe 4, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm gonna pretend that I'm using somebody else's rations on top of mine, so I'm not using all my butter. But first, that is simmering really hard, so I'm gonna go stir that and make sure I'm not screwing it up. Okay, this is now simmering, and I have turned the heat down, and everything's getting mushy and soupy and cooking down. Apparently we are stewing. This is a stewed rhubarb crumble, which anytime I think of the word stewed, I think of tomatoes, which just doesn't compute with the dessert part of my brain, but you know what? That's okay. It doesn't say it has to be pureed, just cooked. So I think we're actually almost getting there. There's a few pieces yet that need it. Okay, back to this. All right, so I'm gonna take my hands and rub the fat into the flour. Rub the fat into the flour, salt, and sugar. All right, so not only are we putting corn syrup in it, but we are also using sugar. This should be sweet. And a pinch of salt. I mean, honestly, this is a pretty simple recipe, as are most wartime recipes. There's been a few that are kind of complicated for the time that I'm like, what? So it's getting crumbly. Now, there's something that's bugging me about this. There's no flavoring, and that's not good. All right, okay, this is concerning. I just realized, so when I normally make rhubarby stuff, there's nutmeg in there, and there's some cinnamon a little bit, but mainly nutmeg. But there's some flavoring in here. This is just not gonna be the same as, I mean, I basically made shortbread. I don't know, okay, well, there's a big part of me that really wants to just kind of improvise and say, well, my household would have had some nutmeg in it, and I'm just gonna put it in there, but for the sake of the recipes, I'm trying to make this as authentic as whatever the recipe is telling me, as if I was a brand new cook and didn't know what I was doing and relying on the recipe and not very much know how, because I feel like I have the tendency to just kind of make it more modern-esque to exactly my taste and not really stick to the recipe if I didn't. Well, it is as fine as breadcrumbs now. Smells like shortbread, which now I want to make shortbread after this, which would go really good with strawberry rhubarb jam, as you can see where my brain is today. All right, I am gonna move that over there. Okay, so my rhubarb looks disgusting now, kind of like fibrous pea soup, but it's stewed. It did stew down. And now I'm supposed to put it in the bottom of my fireproof dish. It looks so bad. It looks like something the Grinch would eat. And it smells kind of terrible. Like it's like hot sweet celery. So I think I might add a category. If you've watched a couple videos ago, I kind of categorized everything into 3 categories of really good recipes, absolutely awful recipes, and desperate recipes. And I think I need to add a sad category. Like, it's not desperate, because you have the stuff, and I don't know if it's bad quite yet, if it tastes any good or not, but just from the looks of it, it looks just kind of sad. So I'm hoping, and this is what it says to do, it just says sprinkle over the stewed fruit. I am hoping that the shortbread topping will kind of be a saving grace for flavor. Now it just looks like I got a pile of parmesan cheese. I don't know what to do with this. Is so odd. It's not, I wouldn't call this a crumble. This is more of a I don't even know. I hope it's good. Okay, so now it says to bake in a moderate oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And I can't believe I didn't see this before. It says in the beginning of the book, your oven temperature equivalents. So a moderate oven is 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit, gas mark 4. I'm assuming that's a British thing. So 350 it is. And see what we get out of this. All right, so this has come out of the oven. It smells kind of good, but all I'm smelling is shortbread right now. I'm not sure if I should let this cool all the way or if I should just dig in, because I feel like I always eat fruit crumbles warm with some ice cream and it's delicious, and I don't have any ice cream. Maybe I could make that evaporated milk ice cream that I made in last week's video. If you haven't seen that, check that out. It actually turned out really, really good. Well, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna say fork it and eat it out of the pan right now. Okay, so it's still crumbly. It didn't melt into a nice cookie or anything. It did solidify a bit, I guess. Whew. That's sour. That is so sour. Whew. That's not enough sugar. Okay, let me start over. It's very sour, as rhubarb is when it has alone, which is why a lot of people mix strawberries with it to, you know, give it some sweetness. But my goodness, it got me right here, like that pickle spot. The flavor's great otherwise. So the sourness aside, the rhubarb tastes like rhubarb. The crumble, I think, is a little floury for me. It's a little, I should say, fine. I like something that you can like chew. Oh, holy moly, that is very sour. I'm gonna try it again though. It's an interesting mix of extremely sour on the bottom and pretty sweet on the top, but not sweet enough to counteract the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna try a few things here, because I'm assuming somebody in their kitchen would have had nutmeg and brown sugar. This is such an unorthodox way of eating a crumble. Definitely needs to be mixed in. That was not a great, perfect way of adding sweetness. This is so tight right now. It's like I almost have like a sore throat right here. Otherwise, it's not bad. It really isn't. The only thing it's missing is sugar. I think I'm going to put it in the good category because of the potential that it has if you just added, you know, another 4 cups of sugar to it. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to join our community. I upload every Monday with a new historical recipe to experiment on, and hit the little bell notification so it lets you know when I do. All right, well, feel free to drop me a comment. Give me a recipe. I'd love to try them for you. And if you need something else to watch last week's video of the evaporated milk ice cream. It was surprisingly good, which I think I might just go ahead and make because I actually still have the stuff and I think it would help this. So, all right, I will see you next Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.